Welcome to Life Workshop, where we discuss the forgotten basics. The topic of this episode again is the part 2 of speak accurately and listen professionally. And again, your most favorite people are here, Doug and Mo.
It's changed. It used to be most favorite host and other co-host.
It's shorter.
So
I'm saving time.
So best co-host and then just this other guy.
Yeah.
Got it.
And best host and the other guy.
No. Best co-host and then just this other guy.
So in the previous podcast, we talked mainly about, how to speak accurately. And then we wanted to speak a bit more about listen professionally. But before I get there, I want to just touch base on this one. Mad cow disease happened in Canada. So can you imagine if, for example, somebody, the same thing that we did to COVID virus, it became a Chinese virus. If we do the same thing, it becomes a Canadian virus. Mad cow disease.
That's wrong.
But, and
that's very personal. That's wrong.
Yeah. Because we are here, if we say to each other, it might not sound, it's just funny. But if somebody, a non-Canadian tells us that, hey, it's a Canadian virus, we
find it offensive. Yeah.
It's a little bit rude, come on.
Yeah.
And especially if that person has a little bit more differences with us for different reasons. And then it is like if you're inside the family, if you talk about your own family, you talk bad about your own family is okay. But if somebody from outside talks bad about your family, it's not so cool.
There's big issues.
Yeah. So, and this is the same thing that we have to really realize is kind of we put ourselves in the other party's basically shoes and understand that when we say Chinese virus, maybe want to be a bit more accurate. And there was the word for it, COVID. It was there.
Just go with COVID. You
just call it COVID. Yeah. But now, when it comes to listen professionally, as I have said, personally, I'm a physical therapist. So I had once, for example, this guy came. And then he said that he has a serious back problem. He came with his wife, and then he was really in a bad shape, bent over, could not even stand proper. And then when I asked him, so what happened? He said he believes that when he had the COVID jab, actually, because of that, he had the back problem. I said, so how long have you had the back problem? And I, of course, I'm a professional. I should ask very accurately. So I said, so when did you get it? Then he gave me a date. I said, so when did you have your COVID shot? He said, 2 weeks prior to that. I said, so how do you connect the two together, though? Because a lot of things has happened. Yeah. And this happens very frequently. It's not about COVID, by the way.
No, it is
about everything else. For example, I had a fall, and now my knee hurts. And when was the fall? A month ago. And then your knee is hurting for just past 2 days. So what is the connection with the two? Sometimes potentially can be, don't take me wrong, but very, very, very seldom. As a general rule, no. If your knee hurts, most likely you did just recently, especially if it's more serious.
Yeah.
And most likely you know about it if you think about it. Most likely, again, I'm saying it's not 100% thing, but most of them is just a rule of thumb. So for example, when we talked with this gentleman that he had back problem, then I realized that there was something else, obviously. And then we discussed it, and that it got completely dismissed, and it was not related to the COVID at all, or COVID jab, I should say.
Okay.
And then now another one. This is a funny one, but for example, I had once. Again, this thing don't happen. This is a very rare thing that happened. I had this guy that he comes for treatment for his knee, and then he said, "Mo, I don't know why, but when I come here, my knee feels better." I said, so, and then this is what he said.
You should give him a sleeping bag. You can stay there for a while.
Honestly, this is what he said, though. This is for real. He said, I think there is something in the air.
Oh.
I am not kidding you.
It's the scented candles that you burn.
I suppose. I said, so don't you think maybe it has something to do with the treatment that we do in here that makes you better? No, it is really something in the air. And honestly, for real. I thought maybe he's joking, but he was not.
Yeah.
He was a little bit more one of those guys that more in abracadabra.
Free-minded.
Kind of.
Open-minded.
Yeah,
sorry, that's the word. Yeah. Okay.
Those people. No, I'm just kidding.
See, there you just generalized. Yeah.
But he was a little bit that way. That, the connections that he made between the two, it was so completely out of whack. But we
But-
make a lot of wrong connections.
Yeah, okay. But in that specific instance, you can use that, for, as a professional, he came to you. Well, he came to you as the professional to try and fix him. Okay. It would then be your responsibility to get him to speak accurately so you can figure out what it is that the issue is.
And I did. To remember this, that this was a bit of extreme.
This
that,
guy is airy-fairy.
It's
get
a
that,
little bit
but-
extreme that you know that. And I said, don't you think maybe it has something to do with the things that we do in here? Even, okay, I should say this, even as a physio, when we work sometime, in some cases happens that, we can't 100% know what's going on. So what I do, if there are a few treatments that I want to do, I do one at a time and test it every single one to see which part of my treatment made you better, to nail it down. And it's not very complicated. You do something and say, okay, test it.
Yeah, process of elimination until something works.
Exactly. And which part worked the best, then maybe repeat that one. It's a very simple concept. It's nothing complicated to it. But again, I said, sometimes we connect things in a very wrong order based on the experiences that we have or we want to believe.
Okay.
Now, of course, before the podcast, we were talking about this. Now, if we come to the normal life, that happens again to listen professionally. For example, it happens sometimes that, let's say you want to meet somebody somewhere and then they are late or they don't show up. Then the first thing is, very frequently, we may say
Often,
that, he stood me up.
Correct.
Or,
You go on the offensive and you get mad and angry. Is that usually the initial first response?
Yeah. And sometimes, we might have some good reasoning behind it too. And the reasoning would be, for example, if that person has a history of doing
A
that.
bit of a reputation to be
Yeah.
late or to cancel.
And, again, it could be correct. But when it comes to, generalization, sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes, if you have a good grounds for it, that this statistically has happened. But normally, say, when you generalize, be ready to be proven wrong as well.
Right.
And so when we do this, then emotionally we don't get engaged. Because we talked earlier that, sometimes it becomes emotional. I said, well, as a physio, I don't get emotional too much. Because we do things based on, very logically. And then can we do that during our daily living? Absolutely we can. Of course, I understand that sometimes some of the things we are not professionals enough, or for example, we are not knowledgeable enough to know what kind of a question to ask to be able to, nail it down a little bit. But again, we can practice on those kind of things, that basically not to make judgments. Let's just simply ask. Simply ask, Don't let your mind to go on crazy thoughts.
Yeah.
So simply ask a question.
Instead of going, you bastard, you stood me up, going, hey, I missed you, what happened?
Yeah.
And then if he says, no, I just didn't want to, sure, then you can be mad. You bastard, you stood me up. Yeah.
No, and again, you just make a decision that you know what you want to do.
Yeah.
For example, again, because this has happened for real. Once, it was a friend of mine. She was supposed to be at my place by 5:30. Then at 6:30, she said, I cannot make it. And then I said, proper English is, I did not make it, not I cannot make it. English for phrase.
Oh, there we go.
It was just a funny thing. I said, you were supposed to be here 1 hour ago. Now, an hour later, you call me that you cannot come? No, you say that I didn't make it, not I cannot make it. I cannot make it is for future.
That's a first.
And because of that, and actually she's a very good friend and I love her and very good. But when it comes now, because statistically she has a track record of that.
Right.
I don't.
It's not personal. It's not.
No, and
you don't plan around that specifically.
That's
If
correct.
it
And
happens,
actually,
it
once
happens.
we had a conversation, and I told her, I said, I will make sure that you are my plan B.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had and they said that, you prove me wrong, because you have done this several times. I cannot just make you my plan A. And then if you show up, cool. It's a surprise. If you don't, well, that's normal.
I invited you, but I'm still surprised you showed up.
Yeah. That is exactly it. But again, the generalization can be right, but at times, but we have to again be ready to be proven wrong. And if we think about it in a different way, then we see that we don't get emotionally mad. The same way that as a physiotherapist, I don't get mad if my patient says something that is not accurate, because it is my job to ask and make it as accurate as possible. If I wanted to deal with it the other way, then I would get mad at most people.
You probably wouldn't be a very good physio.
That is the thing. Life
the
would go.
reality,
And as a matter of fact, I should say this: so sometimes maybe some people that they find their profession a little bit more stressful, I wouldn't be too surprised. Of course, probably not as much, because you learn how to do it.
Right.
But we have learned it in a professional field, but we don't apply it in our normal daily activities. That is one of the problems.
Yeah.
I try to apply that to the normal things too. So any daily thing, yes, somebody is late. If somebody cuts me off, I'm not going to come up, oh, that bastard, they did this thing. Yeah. No, I don't know why they cut me off. I have no idea. The only way to know really is just to go and ask them, and ask very accurately, because sometimes they may say something that's not accurate. So I'm not going to be bothered with it too much. That's what I'm saying. Okay. So what is the value of, again, speak accurately and listen professionally? What's the value? Makes our own life easier.
I know. Clarification, and there's no assuming. It's no either being offensive or being angry. It's what it is.
Yeah. So again, at the end of the day, we want to really, we talked about this in the previous podcast, that, we speak as much as we know. Even, for example, for the chit chat that we have, let's talk about as much as we know. Because, for example, I should just bring this up. It was some time ago, a friend of mine, she brought up that basically I'm not taking enough protein in my diet. And my question was, but I believe I should take this much. She said, no, it should be this much. I thought it is 1 gram per kilogram of my weight. She said, no, it is per pound. I said, so that doubles it up, more than doubles. She said, yes. Yeah. But because really I was asking a question, and then when she said that, I'm grateful. That, hey, thank you. So I went and checked, and she was right. Yeah. Which I was actually surprised, because I thought that I know it. And I had studied a little bit about it, but I made a mistake. I'm not really sure how that mistake happened. But anyways, because I didn't take a position, it didn't become my identity that, it is my thing, and I know it now. You're telling me. Otherwise, I would be even get offended, because you proved me wrong, and proved me wrong, my whole thing, not just in one thing, but the whole thing. And as a matter of, once I brought this up, and then another friend said, but you're a physio, you should know this. I said, no.
I'm not a
nutritionist.
I'm a physio. Yeah.
I said, I know some stuff about nutrition, but very basic. Yes, it is more than the average Joe, but very basic again. I don't know as much. And then and those things I can make mistakes for sure. Even in physio, I work in a specific field of physiotherapy. Right. If you put me in the hospital, they would fire me before I start.
In 20 minutes, yeah.
But without patient, that's another story. That is what I do. So, but because of the fact that the view that I had was different, and in all honesty, I should say it is thanks to the podcast that myself I start to practice them. Yeah. When she pointed out my mistake, the first thing really, and then, oh, thank you, and I have thanked her a few times. Yeah. That because really it made a difference.
It's getting feedback from somebody who knows more than you.
Correct.
And who's obviously a bit more knowledgeable in that specific area, in that field. So I guess she's
of course she doesn't have a degree in it, but she was more educated, and she had studied quite a bit. And again, we went and researched it, and she was right.
That was it. It's probably then up to you to confirm that, or to just double check that. If you're really that keen and interested in it, it's your duty to go.
And actually, I did, because I thought I had it correct.
You wanted to go prove her wrong. That's what you wanted to do. Yeah.
I'm not going to say that. But again, the moral of the story is that when we listen, again, we speak accurately, we listen professionally, we listen really and ask more questions. Things don't get emotional, so emotionally you will not get hurt. And because of that, I keep saying that the way you think, this dictates the way you feel. So be careful how you think. If, for example, as we just said 2 seconds ago, I think, oh, she stood me up. She thought this. She doesn't care about me. She's this. Yeah. I have gone too far. No, she's a personality that she doesn't show up on time. That's it. It has nothing to do with me. It has to do with her.
Yeah.
And, yes, she has done it before. Then I have to now make a decision what I want to do.
keep her visits as a surprise.
Yeah, that is the thing. So
Yeah.
she becomes a plan B, and oh, I'm surprised that you showed up to my invitation. Then I do it that way. Yes.
But I see this whole topic kind of looping itself over and over again, because if you speak accurate, whoever is listening, if they listen professionally, they would then speak accurately back to you.
Yes. It is very true. This is exactly what makes it. It's like when you play, let's say, tennis. If the other party is a bad tennis player, it ruins your game.
Makes me look good.
No, actually ruins your game normally.
Yeah. No, you're right.
If there is you play with a good player, then your game becomes better. It is exact that.
Yeah.
It pulls that thing out of you. Again, it goes back to this thing that is a native saying that they say everybody has a good wolf and bad wolf in them, and then which one wins? The one that you feed.
The one
It goes back in the same concept that if you're playing with a good player, then you become gooder.
Much gooder.
Much gooder. Gooderer.
Okay.
But if you play with a bad player, then you become worse, actually. The same thing happens. You're right. That if, for example, you speak accurately, and sometimes it comes across as harsh. For example, when with this friend of mine that I said, I told her I'm going to make you my plan B, you might guess.
It's a bit harsh, and it's probably,
But you know what? It was at least, I don't know if it was first, but now she knows who she is.
Yeah.
Now you have to do something about it. You accept it or you don't accept it, but then this is how you are.
And that's clarity.
And as I said, I love her. She's a very good friend. I love her. I really, really do. She's very smart, but she's terrible in keeping appointments. So it's just one part I'm talking about, not the whole thing, and not her whole generation and the whole gender and everything else. I'm just talking that one part. Because when I talk like this, sometimes friends, they say that, oh, I thought, you like her. Yes, I do.
Yes, I do.
It has nothing to do with this part. With this part, it's a different thing. So again, to be accurate, then you are very accurate on your basic, the way that you think of the person and you plan around them. And your feelings, would be that way. My feeling is not less than before, but at the same time, I'm not counting on her.
Right.
So it just keeps it in perspective. That's all I'm trying to say. So again, the clarity part of it makes life a lot easier for all of us. And sometimes, again, the fact is that we don't know how to be clear. And then for that, again, we have to go speak with somebody who is more professional in their field.
More cleverer.
Yeah. It's one of those.
Yes.
If I'm going to quickly just throw this. For example, I want a house. So what kind of a house do you want? How big do you want it? How small? Do you want it to be, by level, one level? What's the purpose of the house? How many rooms? Do you want a yard or not? Do you care for the, windows or sign? That how much of a sun you get, what facing which way, which area of the city. Lots of things come into things. But, when you don't ask those kind of things, a house is not a house. It's not just like that.
No.
But if you go speak with somebody who is more professional, can make you think the things that you have not even maybe thought to be that accurate. But then that is how you improve. And one general thing that normally I tell people, for anything you want to do, simply go Google it. Trust me, there are lots of, in all honesty, on Google and YouTube, there are so many people that they have done a really good job that, you can go and learn from. And I'm not saying necessarily I agree with them or all the time or you will, but it will just, broaden your perspective that you can really speak more clearly.
Yeah, and it gives you just a little bit more of armor that you can speak about and think about. And the more you speak and the clearer you speak hopefully you'll get better opinions. Yeah.
So anyway, I hope again this helped. And, you guys, if you can come up with some examples, if you can discuss this with friends and see that how the things that you have had in your own life, that would be interesting, that we can start to fixing those things. But again, thanks for listening, and hope you have a good rest of the day. And
see you next time.
Again, life is simple. Don't make it complicated. Bye now.